Here's what Chris, host of Curious Times, had to say about joy potential.
Hey, Robert, it's Chris from Curious Times. Just want to let you know I read your book, Joy Potential. Thought it was an awesome story, and the twists and the turns were great. I felt like the characters were just really easy to relate to. I most appreciated how the book delivers some sage advice without making you feel like you're being lectured to, and without feeling like I was reading another one of those thousands of self-help books written by some spiritual guru. Very entertaining learning, and the book left me wanting to know what happens next. Thanks so much, and good luck with this book, Robert.
For more information or to order your ebook or paperback, visit www.joybook.me. That's JOYBOOK.me.
And welcome, everybody, to Cathies DistantEchos. And today we've got a special guest, and I just, tickle. And it is our Robert from Bite Radio Me, Mr. Robert Sharpe. Welcome. Oh, wait a minute. Let me open him up. Hello, my Robert.
Good afternoon, Cathie. Thank you for having me. This is fun. I really am happy to be here with you this afternoon.
Bless your heart. Me too. But we are here to talk about a special book that you wrote. Now, the reason I call it special because people write books all the time. Yes. But this one you sent me, and oh my God, it just it speaks to all different levels, and I love that. You want to tell people a little bit about it?
Yeah, and first of all, speaking to very different levels, that's, I really kind of appreciate that. It's funny, people, who we have so many followers, so many mutual followers and listeners that they've kind of heard, how this story unfolded, and, in actual writing and what you and I do on radio is often, it can be used as an example of what people can do if they want, to put their mind to it. And the one thing that I have probably been most surprised at so far is the variety of people that have liked it and the things that they pulled from it. I mean, some people pulled things like, wow, I never thought that would be looked at as important, and so that's kind of a fun thing. But I guess, I should just start. And as far as the story, it's I had a guest on my show. His name was Tim Holmes. He wrote a book called Life at the Edge, Life Without Edges, excuse me. And he talked about his book being faction, that it's based in fact, but there's a somewhat of a fictional story wrapped around it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
right.
So that's pretty much what Joy Potential is. It's got many experiences from my radio show. Several of the characters actually the seed of that inspiration of the characters was actual guests. And it was funny because they popped up when they needed to. So Joy Potential is kind of like a fact. It's facts. It's got, certain people, certain lessons, all those kinds of things are fact. A lot of the feelings, a lot of struggles are fact, and a lot of them are mine, or were mine. But I wrapped it in a story format, rather than just, kind of listing, the best of, I wrapped it in stories so that hopefully the people would be able to be at least entertained and get the essence of how things unfolded, for me, and then possibly put themselves in that spot and see how they could unfold for them.
We had it in a wonderful, the way I read it, and I love the way that you had the characters, except for the one that, and I love the way you did that too. It was you, and I knew it was you, but all of a sudden I get to the part where it said, you listened to Robert's show, and I said, okay. and
okay.
the thing was, I never saw his name. So who was this person? Was it you?
Well, see, now that's one of the key parts of the story. You will never find ever throughout the whole story any identification of the character. There's no mention whether it's male, female, me, or someone else. You'll never. I mean, it is written totally in the first person, I, me, and so. And the reason that, first of all, so that's how I wrote it. And the reason that I wrote it that way is because I wanted people who are experiencing some of the challenges that I had experienced to, if they're reading along and they say, they read, how many times do I have to go over this in my head, you know? And if that is something that they keep asking themselves, I want them to have an aha moment. It's like, man, how many times do I do this, you know? So that was the purpose, is I wanted people to be able to have an opportunity to recognize in the character things that are within themselves.
Well, you did that, and I've never seen any book, and I'm read plenty, but I've never seen any book that never identified themselves. So that was one thing that was wonderful. I love that because it does give us a chance to put ourselves in the place of the writer, and it's amazing. But then there's the I can't think of his name now. But anyway, I love the intuitiveness that it carries with how y'all all connect. You know, the ones you work with or the one the character works with and everything. But it's like they've gone through it themselves, so they can relate to and see where you're going with this. And it's got a lot of twists and turns. I like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I threw in my name as a referral in my radio show, I mean, it was funny because, you know, my whole intent, you know what my whole intent was. So when I got to that particular part in the book where I kind of like I needed that essence, and it just, on my walk, it popped into my head, which is, the whole thing was inspired on my morning walk. You know, on that particular day, it popped into my head, oh, that would just be too funny. You're going to be the one that's going to be the, you know, and your show is going to be so. And I just thought, oh, that's fun. You know what I mean? So, and then when I did that, you know, it does thrill people. And I guess, well, you may have, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I have the book authored just with my first two initials, R.P. Sharpe. And the reason I did that, I mean, I know a lot of people will pick it up and then immediately, you know, insert me as the character, you know, which is cool. I mean, that's fine. But I also wanted people who maybe weren't as aware of the radio show or what I do, you know, that kind of thing, to be able to not put any kind of preconceived idea that this is a guy who does a radio show, you know, this is his thing. You know what I mean? So I purposely did the RP just to be, you know, so they don't know if, you know, unless you really, you know, look into it, you know, it doesn't, it minimizes any preconceived ideas, I guess is what I wanted to say.
Well, what inspired you to write this way?
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know if you know how many times people have said, you know, you're going to write a book, and how many times I've tried to write a book and it hadn't occurred. And in 1995, I had a reading from a psychic in LA who told me, in this particular year, my 56th year, that I would be writing a book that would get out there and you know, and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, my first reaction was having to wait, you know, 18 years for it to happen was not okay with me, you know. So, you know, I tried to do that. And a lot of the things that I wrote ended up being kind of like, I used to teach classes, so they ended up being kind of like lesson plans and that kind of thing. You know what I mean? They were just very structured, weren't entertaining. It didn't have any of those elements in it. And then it was February 3rd of this year that on the morning walk. Now I walk every morning a couple hours. That's my way of kind of starting the day, getting balanced, and I have an incredible amount of intuitive hits that come to me during, that couple miles. And on that morning is when the plot and ending, came to me. I mean, and I remember exactly where I was standing. I thought, oh yes, I can do that. So that's kind of how it started. That was like the inspiration, and so it was then through daily walks that I basically sat down and wrote it. And like I said, there were times, and we can talk about, later on, but there were times during some of the stories that I kind of needed the next step. And sure enough, either a radio guest would come on and talk about something, or I'd be directed somewhere, and sure enough, there it was, right there, right in front of me. So, but that was
I loved it that it wasn't that long. It wasn't a really big, heavy, thick book like a lot of people just go into every sort of detail. But you cut the chase. You get straight to the point. You really do, and I like that about your book. And I like what Becky said in the chat room. She says, to me it reads like it would be Robert's higher self telling the story, and the two characters at work are his guides. She said she's almost finished the story and she's loving it. I'm with her on that one. I have to agree with her.
Yeah. It is, and and the kind of the funny thing is that is the case. And now I'll tell you the story. This is probably the first time this story's been told in connection with the book, but it's something that I realized actually probably about a month and a half into writing the book. First of all, the characters, John and Leonora. When it came time to naming characters and all that kind of thing, and it was fun. It was kind of like, oh wow, I can name these people whatever I want. And when the first supervisor came in and it was John, I'm like, oh come on, let's get creative here. So, but anyway, that was the name. That was the name that it was given, and so that's what I used. Leonora actually was my second choice, and it fit. Now, here's a little bit of insight when it comes to how the writing process affected me. When I got to the point of introducing Leonora, or the character Leonora, I was writing her name as Morales, Morales.
Uh-huh.
And so I started writing probably maybe like 5 or 10 pages, and it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. So anyway, once on one walk, I said, okay, now listen, that character's just name isn't going to work, for what it is, So I said, on this walk, help me figure out a name that works. And while I was walking, I had my little iPhone and, of course, did my little searches. Anyway, I ended up finding the name Leonora is Greek for compassion. So I thought, well, Leonora fits. It was something that. So anyway, once I, did my real quick global switch of Morales, I actually had to go back to the very introduction of the character and rewrite the words, because Leonora wasn't going to let, Morales' words get in, you know what I mean? It was just it was a whole different texture and a whole different feeling. So it was very odd. And then the loudspeaker, and then the loudspeaker too, I don't know if you noticed, but you never get the gender of the loudspeaker, the person on it. Did you notice that? I don't know if you noticed that.
Well, I did know if it was male or female, unless they've got a deep, gruff voice for female, and then no, I don't.
Yeah. Well, anyway, my in that one, I made sure that particular person, when I described the voice and that kind of thing, was one of those that it could have been either, and what, when Becky talked about being my guide and higher self, well, when I was in my youth, I would have a consistent dream of flying to a field of yellow daisies. I mean, a huge, beautiful field of yellow daisies. And this was when my astral travel was like every night. And, you know, I would literally just slap my arms in my dream and I'm gone. You know, I mean, it was not a problem at all. But I would constantly go to this one place. And in that place, there were 3 people, or anyway, there was someone close, and it was a male entity. And that particular person I found would be giving me, you know, advice on the practical level. You know, there was then someone a little further back who was of a female entity, who would really deal with the feelings and the emotional side of what I was going through. And even the furthest was truly a non-gender specific entity who was kind of like the overlord of, you know, this is the biggest picture of them all, you know. So I kind of incorporated that into each of these characters.
Now, is the story about you?
Yes and no. And this is what I want also people to know. You know, a lot of people want to know, you know, what do I write about? What do I write about? When I started writing this story, I made it very kind of generic. You know, I wanted, you know, to apply to as many people. I got to a point where I had to start making it about me. You know, I mean, I had to start expressing my emotions, you know, that I went through. I mean, in order to make the story interesting. I mean, you know, so anyway, so that's what happened. I started, once I accepted the fact that, okay, I'm going to do my story, but it's going to kind of be me. And of course, when that little later, you know, twist happens, you know, that helps me out with, you know, kind of shifting to who it is. You know, a lot of those things, a lot of those struggles, yeah, are things definitely that I've worked with. I mean, they're things that I taught about in my class, you know. So yeah, a good part of it is, but also, you know, there are parts that aren't, you know, completely me. Okay. So, do we still have Cathy here? Cathy, thank you for posting the link to my book, which is joybook.me.
Oh, you're welcome. but the reason I was talking up a storm and I found out I had myself muted. Dang nabbit.
I know. I thought, Cathy, okay, let's see now. I know what the host is doing. Let me try and be a good guest here.
Well, the reason I didn't read the bio is because I wanted to hear,
right.
You know, and we only have an hour show, and I wanted to hear every ounce's little bit about you, you know, in your book, you know, just that much more before the time was up. But here's a question for you, and I like this. You have a small dose of a quantum perspective in the book. Why did you include that?
Well, the main reason that I wanted to put on it is primarily is because when I had the show with Dr. Amit Goswami, who wrote How Quantum Activism Can Save Civilization, after reading his book, you know, that's what really got me my awareness to a quantum perspective kind of going and peaked. And throughout the year, it is using that perspective, or that, you know, that really big perspective, that I have really been able to avoid a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I've been able to release things freely and virtually carelessly, you know, with that needed to go. I mean, you know, so for me, it was probably the biggest shift in perspective that helped me look at things differently, react to things differently, and have a better experience because of it. So I wanted to do it, you know, I mean, and I toyed with, you know, the idea of whether or not to put it in there or not, you know, because sometimes it can get to be crazy, and then I didn't want to even begin to sound like an expert, because I'm not. But come to find out after hearing, a few people who would have no idea about it. It has really helped them. It gave them a perspective that they wouldn't have even begun to look at, but now, it's something that they're considering. So.
Well, one of the great things I loved about the book is that it relates to so much that's going on right now in a lot of people's lives with, having to find a job, having to, not just having to find a job, but having to settle for something that, you trained for all your life and you can't find now. And it's just amazing in the perspective that you learn to adjust with the times and with the fact that you couldn't find a job and learning to get along well with others. And even though it was that third shift, it really helped. It really helped, me as well. I'm sure with others. I can't speak for anyone else, but it really, I see it helping so many with how to adjust to things that, we take for granted until, we can't anymore. But anyway, it says an awareness of missed opportunities plays a major part in the book. Would you explain the reason for that focus?
Okay, yes. Missed opportunities. That was an element of the book that was actually added in probably when I was about maybe about 2/3 of the way through the book. And it was one of those things that, when I was shown the idea of, it's really important to stress, the fact that we have opportunities around us every single day, and we miss hundreds of them every single day, and that the idea of if you're meant to meet somebody, that you'll have several opportunities to do so. If it's one of those cases where it seems spiritually that you're meant to at least play a part for whatever reason, that'll happen. But one of the things that amazes me most is, like when we do a radio show, I'll have people, and I'm sure, I don't know if this happens to you, but I'll have people who will come to me and ask to be on my show. And I look at this thing, just, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And then I will send back okay, here it is, here's the date, just let me know when. And then I'll never hear back from them. Never. And that's like, to me, it doesn't make sense either. I don't understand why they would have asked, you know what I mean, if they didn't want to, and if they wanted to, why they wouldn't follow up. So, to me, I see it happening every day, and it's a shame, because we filter out so many possible opportunities that come to us because of a myriad of reasons. Either we find it not interesting, or we're distracted, or we're not aware, or we just don't have the follow through, or for whatever reason. There are many reasons why people probably don't follow through on that. But the point I wanted to make in the book was that if you really want to maximize your life, then take advantage of those opportunities. Minimize the number of missed opportunities.
Absolutely. No matter how, rough it seems for the person that's having to go through it, like the character in your book, it does have opportunities there to learn, and I totally agree because, it's all through the whole book, but it's got all different twists and turns is what I love. I can't get over just how wonderful the book is. And so
thank you.
Now, a lot of times on negative cycles and their impact on daily life. Why?
Yes. Now that was, and I do spend. It's interesting. I had the book read by some friends ahead of time, and while I was writing the book, I found myself repeatedly focusing on the negative cycles that the character was in. And these are negative cycles that I either am in or have been in, or most likely will be in again at times, It's just a cycle, one of the things that, I questioned as I was writing it was I focusing too much on this negative cycle stuff, was it just, too much Robert and his battling negativity, or, was it appropriate? Anyway, afterwards I found out that, it's just the right amount, that I do focus a lot of attention on those cycles, but it's, the reason for that is because that's how the people are going to become aware if they have one of those cycles in their life.
You do have it where so many of us can relate, and it also lets us know we're not going through this alone, whether it's put in a book or whatever. It still comes from the heart of someone that's writing it, to the point where it does allow people to know that they're not alone, no matter if it's written in fiction or not. There's an element of truth in all writing. So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, in the quantum, one of the things that I really wanted in the book was for people to recognize, yes, we're part of a whole, we're part of this, massive expression of life, but we're also an individual expression within that greater, and that each person's story is
unique,
is valuable, and unique, and valuable, valuable. It all contributes to the greater, understanding, and that there will be people who will understand various aspects of your story more than others, and some may not even relate completely, but what's happened is those universal messages are similar, and even though the setting may be different, the circumstances are the same.
But you go about in your book on learning to adjust to having to what you considered at the beginning settling for a temporary position in a job that you really didn't want and didn't interest you, but you had to take something. So in that regard, I love that too, because it shows how a person can adjust themselves to anything. But you were on this constant approach on pursuing your hobby. So why did you continue to throw that in?
Yeah. Now, and see, when it came to writing the book, I wanted people to recognize that, as far as being in tune with, and getting guidance, sometimes the best time for that to happen is when people are involved in their hobby, whatever their hobby may be. It's, for some people it may be jewelry making, for some it may be walking in nature, for, whatever brings them joy. And I wanted people to recognize that the first step to identifying joy potential is to start with their hobby, what brings them joy, and then work from there, bring more of that in some way, shape, or form into their life. Because sometimes some people really have a hard time, and there's I had a whole LinkedIn discussion going on right now, joy versus happiness, and what's the difference between the two. But joy is that real electric sense of expression, and so. Anyway, so that's why I wanted to direct people toward their hobby, because most people have some type of hobby, so, and I would even venture to say that the younger generation playing video games, I would venture to say that they're doing a whole lot of time in the ethers, while they're playing. I mean, if you look at them, yes, they're into it, but they're, I have a feeling that they're in one of those zones, so.
Yeah, I've been in those zones before. I know you have. We like those zones, don't we?
Yeah. Well, that's where, you find happiness and joy and contentment and peace, some very wonderful feelings to, bring into your life every day if you can.
And I consider that a type of meditation where I don't consider myself ever doing meditation. And someone said, it's just clearing your mind. Well, I do that when I stare out the window, so I guess I'm meditating 24/7. So.
Well, and that is the case, and that sense of stillness, and that is exactly, if that gets you into that zone, then that's the meditation. And people get hung up on names and that kind of thing. The whole idea is really to tune into, that inner self, that that higher expression, that you want to kind of touch base and say, hey, am I doing okay? What do I need to do? What do you need to do? So. But
okay. So what do you hope that people will learn from your book?
Well, I would say probably the biggest thing that I want people to do is really start recognizing joy, basically making use of opportunities, and just being more happy, minimizing stress, put things into proper perspective, gain a bigger understanding of, the what people's intentions may be or may not be, and manage your expectations, that kind of thing. Just basically living a happier life. And it's interesting. So far, I've gotten a couple of the different responses. One, a lady who cuts my hair in the upstate. She's a barber, and she really took that customer service aspect of the character and his desire to make sure that the customers were happy. That was very important for her. And it's interesting because when she does a haircut, she does it the old-fashioned way. She puts the hot towel on your neck, and shaves your neck for the guys, just wonderful care, And I think she's been chastised before for going to that amount of detail. But when she read the book and recognized that, her customers leaving happier should be, what she wants to accomplish. And she does that, and to allow other people's judgment of what she does to bring that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I like that scenario. Great example. But I don't want to hear the end of the book because I haven't made it to the end of the book yet.
So
I don't want to hear the ending.
You won't go there. I
want to know what you've learned. I want to know what you've learned in writing this.
Oh, gosh. First of all, it was the discipline to do it, I tried, from the time I got the idea, I tried several different ways. I actually even cut out Curious Times at night just to see if that was a good time for me to write, but it wasn't, But anyway, once I got into the flow of having morning walks, getting that little bit of inspiration, and then getting back to the house and then writing it down, that establishing that pattern was critical to get it done. So that meant I really had to shift a whole lot of stuff I normally did during that time period. Website updates, show updates, all that kind of stuff. So all of that took a back seat. So that was the first thing probably, was the discipline that it takes. You have to carve out time. If you want to write something, you have to carve out the time to write. It's simple as that. And the other thing was the book unfolded over the period of about 9 months. So the title didn't appear probably until 4 or 5 months into writing. And one of the things that I learned through that is to release, because in the beginning it was like, what am I going to call it? What should the outline be, and all this and that. I ended up just kind of leading that, and I called it for several months. The name of the file was The Book. And, so that was one thing, was to, if you have the idea, that kind of thing, go ahead and establish your routine, start writing, don't get caught up in the details. I knew what I wanted the ending to be, but I wasn't sure, and sure enough, probably about a month before I was ready to finish, I ended up getting someone who came to me for a show whose name made the whole ending fit like a glove. So, I would say the old me would have been really hung up on trying to manage things from the onset versus letting go and just allowing a free flow of information.
And it is. It's written in a free flow, form, and I like that about it because it does help anyone of any caliber or age or rank or whatever you want to put yourself into the, position of. It really can be related to by all walks of life. And I like that. Now, you published this on your own. You want to tell us a little bit about why?
Yes, self-published versus publisher, that old, paradigm. Let's see here. Obviously you and I, with having many authors on our shows, we come into contact with publishers all the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one of my thoughts was, let's, try and bring it to a publisher. Now, one of the things that you liked about the book, about it not being really a huge, long book, would be looked at from a publisher's standpoint as being a detriment, that there's just not enough content. So, that therein starts the, what you have versus what, some find acceptable or not. I went through and I did actually contact a couple publishers, and it was directed to their submission process. And one of them was, basically kind of recap the idea of the book and then an outline of the chapters and then kind of write it afterwards. Well, one of the things that I learned with mine was that it was very difficult to set up chapters, because I tried to set up chapters ahead of time, what I'm going to talk about. It just didn't work that way. It just didn't flow that way, so, I had to kind of abandon that early on, So, anyway, talked to a couple of publishers. One publisher, I probably had half a dozen of his authors on my shows. I wrote to him probably 4 months ago, and just got a response a couple of days ago. Go ahead and send me your copy of your book. And so, yeah, exactly. So I politely declined, said thank you. My initial email was to get information prior to publishing. But as you can see, I have self-published. And by the way, if you have other authors, do feel free to send them my way.
You're so cute.
Roy accuses me sometimes of his Scorpio coming through in some of my correspondence.
Now, did you do your own editing as well?
Well, I did, and with Chris, wonderful Chris. Chris from Curious Times did an excellent job going through with help of online editor as well, and helped with a lot of the grammar and that kind of thing. So it was edited. It was edited many, many times. And one of the things that I also found out too is that it seems like no matter how many people edit, and I've had some people who do that actually professionally for a living did it, and it's just amazing how many times you can still find errors. I mean, I still get books now that I read that still have typing errors, and I used to think, man, how could they get that through publishing without touching that? And now I have an appreciation about, that can happen. That can happen. So, but,
Chris is amazing. She really is.
I just appreciated that very much, and I wanted to make sure to acknowledge her and make acknowledgement for that support. So, yeah, I did the editing, and now it's doing the promoting, all by, kind of, from random. So, I mean, When it came down to publishing, I finished everything and it was ready for publishing, so to speak, at the end of October. And, at that particular point, if I wanted to go through a publisher, there's absolutely no way it would be done in 2012. It just couldn't be done. And so I had the ego discussion of, was it really important to go with a publisher and keep waiting to find someone, or is it more important to just get it out there? You can do it yourself, So I went out there, it's just more important to get it done, do it myself. I've never done it before, but, hey, I've never, ever let that stop me from doing anything, And so anyway, so that's it, learned how to do the e-publishing, get it. I mean, you had to have it in several formats, e-publishing for iBooks, and then you've got the Kindle version, and then the Nook. And Nook is unique in itself that I have the ebook and the Kindle on sale for $3.33 for the holiday, and Nook kind of gets its information fed down through Amazon. So I set at Amazon $3.33, and anyway, Nook it took a long time for Nook to get accepted, for them to accept my book in the format for their device. But when they did, anyway, they apparently don't like the $3.33 price, because I just noticed yesterday, which was probably like a week. It took them like a week to accept the download. But anyway, it's $2.99, $2.99 on Nook.
Wow.
So they didn't like the $3.33, so they adjusted it downward to $2.99.
Made them feel uncomfortable, did it?
I guess. But it was just funny. But those are little quirks and unique things that, if you've never done it before, you wouldn't know, So, obviously I do know. And the one thing about self-publishing that's really interesting, too, is that I can go on daily and see if any books were bought. You know what I mean? I have at my disposal, I can tell how many were bought per day, and not where or anything like that. But it can be encouraging or discouraging. But it's been encouraging. But that's a freedom and an immediate supportive response that you can get that you can't get through publishing, an established publisher. So.
Right. And there's one more thing I want to say about that book that is just fantastic, and that's the cover.
Oh, yeah. You like that, huh?
I love that too, yeah.
Yes, that cover is called, the piece of art, and it was an acrylic, I believe. It's called Light Worker. And the person who created the art, who I got the rights from, is Eva Shekmar-Sullivan. Eva Shekmar-Sullivan. And she created the Celebration of Love Oracle deck. And it was during our show with her, and my book had been, in the writing stage for, probably a good halfway through it, and she ended up being on my show, and how that all comes about. I write to shippers, say, I'd be interested in talking to this person, and they send me the deck, and I contact her. And anyway, she tells me during her show that several of her pieces of art have been used as book covers. So I, of course, registered that for future use, And when I got to the point of, selecting the book cover, it was really interesting. One of the publishers said that if you do anything, make sure you spend time on the cover. That is the key element, to whether or not your book is even looked at or not. And so I contacted Eva. She had one particular piece of art that I was interested in called Divine Essence. And I kind of liked it, but it wasn't available. It was actually used for a book. And so I thought, oh, man, and I went back and actually ended up, giving the Lightworker a second look. And I thought, Lightworker is that's like perfect for the character, And, going up to the heavens and getting those guidance, that's kind of perfect. And, those little light bulb glows, those are perfect opportunities, So the more that I looked at it, the more it suited. And so, I asked her, what's the process of getting the rights for that, and we worked that out. And, so that's how that happened. And so, it's funny because, again, in 1994, I'd be writing this book, and all of those things that had to happen in order for this book to be the way that it was. I mean, I had to do the radio show. It had to be for a certain period of time, and I had to have certain guests on, and to be able to give me the perspective that I put in the book, So, there was a whole lot of things. It kind of, I guess the point of that is that the things that you do every day contribute to your end result, and just to keep that in mind, and once you start seeing what all of those pieces are, then it's kind of like that kind of gives you the direction then where you should be heading. So it kind of all came together, and I love that piece of art now. I just I enjoy it.
It fits the book perfectly. It really does, because when I looked at it, I was like, and because of the way you got it written inside, the outside pretty much relates to what you got written, and with the higher self, in as far as wanting to do better for yourself, and taking other people's advice and listening to what the other two have to say, and it's just a very intuitive, caring, loving book, and I love that about it. I love the fact that it's not a very big book. It doesn't take you a week or two to read it. But,
I know.
It gets to the point. It gets to the heart, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and that's and I struggled with that too, because once I got down to that point, of the end, I'm like, oh my God, I'm already at the end, and so then I kind of like input the pages and see what it translates and what size. I thought, well, this is kind of on the fair to slimmer side of a normal size, you know what I mean? So and then I of course do the second guessing and do I want to add more than that? And then because of my book and the lesson, I stopped second guessing. It's like, this is it.
There's a such thing as you can overthink things too much too.
Oh, absolutely. I think that prevents so many people from doing things. It's just overthinking, and well, if I do this, I don't know. All that mind noise of what if, and they never do. You find out. So.
Now, we do have a caller, and let me bring him on. I haven't had a chance to screen him yet. So, and we do have 9 minutes left, and I did want Robert to be able to talk a little bit about his radio show. But let's bring him on. Hello, 540. Can I have your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm calling from Winchester, Virginia. I had a quick question for him. What is the difference between joy and bliss?
Well, yeah, this is just my personal opinion on that, is that joy is a kind of a series of momentary, bright expression, happiness, excitement, little extra elevated, Bliss to me is a sense of peace, constant peace, a consistent sense of peace. And so that's just how, I look, and then of course, when you have happiness and bliss, I think happiness probably, you add in that little fluttering heart, you have happiness, you make that heart kind of rest at peace, and you have bliss, that's anyway, that's my opinion. I don't know, what do you think, Cathy?
Oh, me? You said it perfectly. You said it great.
Oh, I agree. Okay. I agree. Well, thank you. That was the only question I had.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks for calling, Amy. Appreciate that.
Bless your heart.
The one thing I have to tell people, if you write something, write what you want to talk about, because you'll be doing it, you'll be living it, so make sure It's something you want to talk about. I
Good
have
boy.
to lack of joy. I get to talk about joy. I get the people talking to me about joy and bliss and happiness. See, so that's a good thing. So keep that in mind.
But one more question I want to ask you really quick, and then we'll get on to your radio show. Why did you pick the title?
Joy potential. Why did I pick that? Or where you least expect it? Well, first of all, joy potential. Why that happened? That again, that kind of came right about the 2/3 mark, and it was, I think, in the discussion of the quantum area. In that quantum area where I talk about potential, I think that is where it came together as that. So once that happened, I just couldn't get it out of my head. It had to be joy potential. That's what it's all about. We have that potential to have joy, whether we harness it or not is our choice. And then, from a couple of publishers, both had indicated that it really needed a subtitle. And I played with a few different things, and actually where you least expect it was the suggestion of Roy. so he came up with that one, and out of everything that I had thought about, now that was the one that kind of really fit, because that's what I want people to recognize is that wherever you least expect it, you can find joy. So,
but before we say goodbye, I did want to tell people that Robert has a radio show, if you don't know it by now, and it's called Bite Radio Me, and bless his heart, we just love him. He has a fantastic show with so many different hosts over there, and tonight he has a show at 8 p.m., and he has Eve Sheldon, who is a tarot reader and also an intuitive, and that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. But and tell us a little bit about it. And you've been doing radio for 25 years?
I know, isn't that really? When I started in broadcast, Roy had actually a broadcast show in Las Vegas, is where the radio started. And I was the producer of the behind the scenes of everything, that kind of thing that wasn't technical back then. And that's where it started. But yeah, so, and then of course the internet radio in that experience. But Bite Radio Me started in October 2010. This year, coming 2013, I'm going to be doing looking at things differently. I've had a few regularly scheduled psychics on my show. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm actually going to free up some of my space because I want to hit the road. I want to do book signings and radio shows from remote locations, and talk to people throughout the country. So, so I thought I wanted to try and establish a structure where that can happen, and this is one of the things that's happening to a lot of people. In order for me to be able to have that, I needed to cut back on something. And some of these people I really enjoy and are friends with, but that's not the course. So it's kind of like it's a tough decision, but it's one that's in line with what I need to do. So.
And Chris said, send them her way. She said, if they still want to go on shows now and then.
Okay, Chris. I'll be sure to let them know. So, yeah. So anyway, that's it. And in 2013, I'm going to be doing the 20-year release of the Prophecy Oracle. I've got that published right now. I'm working on finishing all that, and then started working my second book. And the second book is going to actually have an evil character.
I've
already
cool.
identified the character.
Now, is it true what they say, after the first book is under your belt, it's a lot easier to write the second one and the third and the fourth?
It is. That is true. It is true. One of the things, again, I have to find myself forcing myself into a discipline, back into the writing, because once it's done and edited, you kind of fall out of the actual. I fell out of the writing, pattern. But it's getting that back in. But and it's interesting that this particular time I'm actually able to do more of an outline of ideas, but I still will be able to have a free flow. But it's actually kind of conforming more to a traditional way of the way that they're written. So, but it's all an unfolding. You know what I mean? And that's what I wanted everybody to know. Because everybody can do it. I mean, you can write a book, you can get it up there virtually at no cost, and then you can start having income coming in. All it takes is the determination to do that. And I recommend that people write in a form that you like to read. If you like to read crime novels, write a crime novel. If you like to read romance novels, make a romance novel. Whatever you like to read, write in that. And again, write something about you would love talking about. Everybody has the ability to do it. I did it in a year. Everybody can do it, but this time next year could have their own published book if they want.
Well, y'all been here and y'all have heard a little bit about the book. I have to say it's fantastic so far, and he didn't tell me the end of it. Yay! But the name of the book is Joy Potential, where you'd least expect it, and Robert will be on tonight at 8 p.m. So I've got his show in the chat room. It's Byte Radio Me for the listeners that aren't in the chat room. And look it up, and he always has great shows over there. And he's a rare person that I am just grateful to have in my life as far as a friend. And he's one of those kind of people you just want to get over there, find him really quick, and give him a big old hug. So
there you go. See, what I'm looking forward to is being on the road and meeting some people and actually doing that. To me, that would be a delight. So I'm actually excited about doing that. So and I'm excited about clearing out a path for something new. So everybody else, clean out your closet and make room for something new.
Absolutely. But don't forget to get the book because it's a great book. You will not be disappointed. But thank you, everyone, for coming, and y'all have been great. And Becky G, our Byte Radio Me, Robert, our Boo-Boo, our Charm Parker, our Chris, Curious Listener, our Stan, Divine Mystic, Eve Winehart, Get What You Want, JB, our beautiful Lynn's over there in England, and Senior GP and Sovereign Archer Richard. Thank y'all so much for coming. Good night, and God bless, and thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, everybody. So thanks for joining us for another encore presentation of one of the old Cathies DistantEchos shows. We're going to try to run these on Fridays, and it doesn't guarantee that we'll have one every Friday. And as well on this channel, we have Linz and Rihanna who do Flying with Angels, and they have their next show coming up on October the 6th. We are continuing to look for other potential hosts, and so you can just sort of like stay tuned with us to see how things develop with that. And thanks again for joining us to enjoy one of these shows and have a chance to listen to Cathie again and do whatever reminiscing those of us do when we hear one of these shows. So with that said, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks very much. And I'm going to head over to Robert's show at Byte Radio Me. I have the link there in the chat room if anyone else is going to go over to. And so with that said, Linz, are you going to take us out of here, please?